The air hangs thick with the metallic tang of blood and smoke. You stand at the edge of a shattered wall, the stone still warm beneath your palms from the fires that raged through the night. Screams echo off the hills, sharp as shattered pottery women's voices, young ones, pleading in a tongue that twists like river vines. A Roman legionary shoves past, his armor slick with sweat and something darker, dragging a girl by her unbound hair. She's no more than 16 summers, her tunic torn at the shoulder, eyes wide with the kind of terror that freezes time. He doesn't look at her face. None of them do. The ground trembles under marching feet, 1,000 hobnailed boots grinding the earth to mud. In the distance, chains rattle like distant thunder, linking wrists that once wove baskets by clear streams. This isn't the end of a battle, this is the harvest. And as the sun dips low, painting the sky in the red of fresh spilled wine, you realize the true crop they reap isn't gold or grain. It's futures stolen, one broken body at a time. But hold that image, because what comes next, the machinery that turns girls into ghosts, will chill you deeper than any winter fog. What you're about to hear involves sexual violence and the systematic enslavement of innocents. These events are drawn from ancient accounts and modern digs, raw and unflinching. If this pulls too close, step away. I get it. For those pressing on, we dig into the gears of empire, not to linger in the pain, but to see how one man's ambition ground a world to dust. Imagine a land of rolling green hills and sacred groves, where druids whispered to oaks older than memory, and tribes gathered under woad blue skies for feasts that lasted moons. This was Gaul, a patchwork of fierce folk from the Rhine's misty banks to the Pyrenees' jagged teeth, 60 tribes strong, each with their own chieftains, their own gods carved from river stone. By the late winter of 58 BC, Rome's shadow stretched long across the Mediterranean, a republic bloated with conquests in Spain and Greece, its senators squabbling like crows over scraps of power. Enter Gaius Julius Caesar, a patrician with debts taller than the Capitoline Hill and ambition that burned hotter. Exiled to the edge of the world as governor of Cisalpine Gaul, he saw not a backwater, but a ladder to the stars. Rome needed grain, slaves, glory. Gaul had them all, and more warriors who could test his steel. Caesar wasn't born with a butcher's blade in hand. Picture a boy in the Subura slums of Rome, dodging carts and cut purses. His father, a praetor who died young, leaving whispers of scandal. Young Gaius learned early. Power wasn't inherited, it was seized. At 17, he dodged execution under Sulla's purges, hiding in the Sabine hills while lists of the proscribed turned friends to ash. That scar ran deep, the Senate's knives always at his throat. By his 30s, he'd clawed to consulship, marrying his daughter to Pompey, binding the Republic's might to his own. But debts mounted, 5 million sesterces owed to Crassus's vaults. Gaul was his gamble. Vini, Vidi, Vici, he'd later boast, but it started quieter. A migration of Helvetii tribes crossing his province, sparking border skirmishes. Caesar struck first, claiming defense of Roman allies. In truth, it was the machine whirring to life legions funded by plunder, reports scripted for the Senate's applause. The tension simmered for years. Gaul wasn't one nation, but a web of alliances, fragile as spring ice. Tribes like the Aedui bent knee to Rome for protection. Others, the Arverni in the volcanic Auvergne, dreamed of unity under kings like Vercingetorix. Germanic raiders probed from the east, Ariovistus's Suebi horde, crossing the Rhine like wolves. Caesar played them all ally to the Aedui, scourged to the Helvetii, who he crushed at Bibracte in 58, slaughtering thousands in the river mud. But that victory whetted appetites. His legions, 8 hardened cohorts, at first, swelled to 10, then 12, 40,000 men, engineers bridging rivers in days, scouts mapping sacred sites for siege lines. The political winds in Rome howled too. Pompey and Crassus eyed his gains. The Senate grumbled at unchecked power. Caesar wrote dispatches from the front, his commentaries on the Gallic War, polished prose that painted him hero, not hawk. Yet beneath the lines, the system ground on taxes funneled to Rome, slaves auctioned in batches of thousands, villages torched to deny grain to foes, humanize the man for a breath. Caesar, at 42 when Gaul fell into his lap, was no snarling tyrant. He quoted Ennius at campfires, debated philosophy with lieutenants over watered wine. A epileptic who hid his fits with iron will, he bedded queens like Cleopatra for alliances. Not just lust, but formative fires forged him. The sullen purges taught betrayal's bite. His Aunt Julia's funeral oration in 69 BC, railing against obstinate foes, ignited his populist flame. And the pirate ransom in 75 BC captured off Cilicia, he mocked his guards, demanded 30 talents instead of 20, then crucified them upon release. Mercy, a tool, bent or broken as needed. In Gaul, that pragmatism curdled. The Helvetii defeat, with 92,000 warriors shattered, left him tasting invincibility, but whispers reached him. Tribes plotting, Germans massing, paranoia? No, prophecy. By 56 BC, he'd raised the Veneti fleet off Armorica, enslaving 80,000 in a single stroke. The machine hummed centurions promoted on heads counted, engineers innovating ballistae that hurled fire into thatch roofs. Gaul wasn't land to till, it was a ledger to balance, red with Roman ink. Then, the turning point. Spring 55 BC, on the Meuse's foggy banks, two Germanic tribes, Usipetes and Tencteri, flee the Cherushi. 90,000 souls strong, women cradling babes, elders leaning on staffs. They seek asylum. Caesar parleys under truce flags. His envoys vanish into the mist. Minutes later, screams his men slaughtered, tents aflame, rage boils. No quarter, he orders. Legions fan out, cavalry thundering. The river runs red for days. Men hack at warriors till arms weary. Then the women, shields splintered, clutching children as arrows whisper death. Bodies pile like cordwood. 200,000 souls snuffed in a week. Caesar calls it justice. The world calls it the first genocide on Dutch soil. That bloodbath crystallized it. Gaul wasn't a campaign, it was erasure. Tribes would kneel or vanish, their daughters the price. And in the camps that night, as fires crackled and wine loosened tongues, the true harvest began, not just chains, but claims on flesh. But that shadow lengthened slow. 3 years on, it swallowed Avaricum whole. Dawn breaks over the Bituriges' stronghold, a walled town nestled in the Cher Valley, like a jewel in emerald fields. It's early summer, 52 BC, the air heavy with the scent of blooming wild garlic and the faint rot of unburied hopes. Avaricum, now Bourges, hums with defiance, 40,000 souls packed tight, warriors in bronze torques, women grinding barley by handmills, children chasing geese through narrow lanes. Vercingetorix, the young Arverni king with hair like raven wings and eyes that pierce like spear points, has forged a pan-Gallic league. His strategy, scorch earth, starve the invader. But here, pride swells. This is our stand, he declares to envoys, voice steady as oak. Rome breaks on these walls. Outside, Caesar's camp sprawls like a iron beast ditches dug deep, palisades topped with thorns. 50,000 legionaries drilling to the snap of centurion whips. Tents flap in the breeze, carrying murmurs of home. A vineyard in Campania, a wife's letter unread. But eyes harden on the ramparts, where painted shields gleam. Enter Segolena. She's 20, daughter of a potter from the town's clay-rich kilns, her hands calloused from shaping urns that held mead for solstice rites. Life before the siege was rhythm, mornings fetching water from the Yevra, afternoons glazing pots with ochre slips, evenings singing lullabies to her niece under starlit thatch. Betrothed to a smith named Dumnorix, she dreamed of a hearth of her own, children with his sturdy build and her quick laugh. The League's call changed that. When Vercingetorix rode in, horns blaring, she joined the women hauling stones to reinforce the gates, her braids swinging like a pendulum. For the groves, she'd say, pressing a sprig of mistletoe to her lips. Segolena wasn't a warrior, but in Avaricum's press, every hand mattered. She bandaged wounds from skirmishes, shared her last wheaten cake with a fevered elder. Hope flickered rumors of Gallic hosts marching to relieve them. But as weeks dragged to 25, hunger gnawed. Dogs vanished first, then rats. Women boiled leather thongs, faces gaunt as winter branches. Caesar circles like a hawk. His siege mounds rise, turtle-shelled testudos inching closer under arrow hail. Ballistae thunder, bolts punching through oak gates. Rain fails them, a god's jest, leaving the legions to bake in mudless sun while Gauls licked dew from leaves. Segolena's world shrinks, her kiln cold, fingers prying acorns from husks. One eve, as thunder rumbles false promise, Dumnorix pulls her aside in the shadowed forum. "If it falls," he whispers, pressing a bronze fibula into her palm, his mother's heirloom, shaped like a running hare. "Run to the river, swim if you must." She nods, throat tight, but clings to the league's fire. Vercingetorix's riders slip through lines at night, bearing word, "Hold." The town prays to Usipetes, offerings of bread gone stale. Tension coils like a bowstring. Scouts report a storm brewing. Caesar's engineers tunnel beneath walls, props ready to burn. Inside, whispers fracture. Some urge surrender, others sharpen sickles. Segolena overhears elders in the temple, voices low. The Romans offer terms, arms down, lives spared. Vercingetorix's missive arrives by dawn light. Deny them. Better death free than chains bowed. The king rides out himself, cloak billowing, to rally. Gaul rises or falls here. Cheers swell, but Segolena feels the fray. That night, as winds howl, the assault crashes. Flames erupt from below, tunnels collapse and roar, walls buckle like knees in prayer. Legionaries pour through breaches, shields locked, swords thirsty. Warriors meet them in the streets, torques flashing in torchlight, but numbers crush. Dumnorix falls early, axe buried in a Roman shield, his cry lost in the din. The breach widens. Segolena flees with a knot of women, niece clutched to hip, through alleys slick with blood. Shouts in Latin, harsh, guttural, chase them. "Capite! Feminas!" Heads and women. They bar a temple door, backs pressed to cedar, breaths ragged. Hammers fall outside, wood splinters. The door gives, sunlight spears in, blinding. A centurion's scarred jaw, eyes flat as coins, steps through, sword dripping. His men fan, faces smeared with soot and fury. Segolena thrusts her niece behind, fibula clutched like talisman. "Mercy," she stammers in broken Latin, learned from traitors. The centurion pauses, gaze lingering not on her face, but the curve of her neck, the tremble in her stance. A soldier grabs the child, yanking free. Segolena lunges, nails raking flesh. Pain blooms, a gauntleted fist cracks her jaw. She crumples, world spinning. Chains clink cold on wrists. The temple empties into the square, girls herded like lambs, tunics rent for searching hands. No blade falls yet, that's mercy, in their tongue. Word spreads like fever through the legions. Avaricum's theirs, but restraint snaps. Remembering Cenabum's blaze, where Gauls torched Roman traitors alive, fury boils. Titus Flavius, a grizzled centurion from the 10th, veteran of Helvetii mud, watches from the ramparts as his men spill into homes. He's seen sieges before, from Iberia to Illyria, but this, women drag elders to safety, only to find thresholds barred by spears. Infants wail, silenced quick. Titus halts a young auxiliary, blade raised over a potter's wife. "Enough!" he growls, voice gravel from 20 campaigns. The general wants live spoils, but the boy fresh from Brundisium laughs, wild-eyed. "Spoils come first, sir." Titus turns away, bile rising. By dusk, the town reeks smoke from looted hearths, the copper bite of slaughter. 40,000 gone, or near it. Caesar arrives at twilight, cloak dust-caked, face a mask. "The men acted from just wrath," he pens later, quill steady. But in the square, as pyres light the dead, the living chain in ranks. Thousands, mostly women, eyes hollow. Titus counts heads for the auction girls like Segolena, unbroken, yet valued high for Roman beds. This wasn't vengeance, it was valuation. And across Gaul, the word flew, "Resist, and your daughters pay the toll." But in the camps that night, as victors diced for first claims, one truth lingered. The machine didn't stop at walls. It followed home. Shift now, to the victor's haze. Titus Flavius trudges the Via Decumana, his vine staff tapping mud, the camp's order a balm after chaos. It's weeks after Avaricum, legions marching south to Gergovia's heights, but the echoes cling girls' sobs in the wagons, rattling with amphorae. Titus isn't Caesar's shadow. He's the gear that turns. 45, From a vine-grower's plot near Veii, he enlisted at 18 for the salt and glory. Now, with 3 oak leaves on his crest, he drills contubernia in shield walls, reports to tribunes on morale. The lads need rest, sir, he tells his legate over mess that eve, bread sopped in garum. The legate nods, eyes on maps. Spoils keep 'em sharp. Incentives hum through the ranks. A girl's worth 50 denarii, auctioned fair. But Titus knows the undercurrent soldiers claiming rights en route, passing her like a wineskin till the block. He saw it in Veneti coves, where coastal wives fetched pearls for hair. Spread it did, this harvest. From the Some's chalk cliffs to the Loire's willow bends, reports chained up, scouts to prefects to Caesar's tent. 10 villages cleared, 300 heads. Villages emptied, not just of men, but hearths women marched to ports, branded on thighs with legion marks. Numbers blurred to human, a healer from the Remi, herbs still in her pouch, a weaver from the Parisii, loom threads tangled in braids. Perspective tilts further, to the road's dust. A merchant's cart creaks past the column, laden with tin from Cornish traders, its driver a grizzled nervy survivor named Brannock, squinting at the chains. He escaped the Sambre ford in 57, when Caesar's horse drowned half his kin, but sells now to Romans, bartering silence for silver. Brannock sees the machinery plain. Incentives for auxiliaries, Gauls turned against Gauls for a share. They promise freedom, he mutters to his mule, but chains find daughters first. One halt near the Alesia, he watches a brief flash, a girl, perhaps from the Senones, slips her bonds in twilight, darting for the woods. Arrows sing. She falls, not dead, but claimed again. No chase, waste not effort. The system thrives on scale. Whole kin groups auctioned, dispersed to mines in Hispania or villas in Latium. Breather, here, amid the grind, a quiet irony. Titus shares his ration with a ladling slave, a boy from Avaricum, eyes too old for 10 winters. "What's your name?" Titus asks, voice low. The boy shrugs, mouthing Caesar's gift. Laughter bubbles, dark as rivers silt the conqueror's brand on a child's tongue. Contrast bites. Gaul's bards once sang of Cernunnos in verdant glades. Now, those glades hide mass graves, wildflowers nodding over forgotten bones. Escalation creeps, geographic shift to the east. By autumn 53, Caesar hunts the Eburones, whose chief Ambiorix ambushed his winter quarters, slaying 15 cohorts. Vengeance scorches, legions raise Opida, smoke pillars marking the map. Women flee to fens, clutching babes, only to find no mercy in reeds. Reports tally. Thousands enslaved, young ones sifted for the forum's blocks. Titus, detached to forage, stumbles on a hollow dozens, girls mostly, throats slit when flight proved futile. Overreach, he curses, but orders burial swift. The machine incentivizes, bonuses for batches unbroken, virgins prized for purity's myth. Brannock hears tales from traders 25,000 perhaps, tallied loose from Avaricum to the Rhine, young women herded to Ostia, sold to senators' sons. Not virgins all, but Rome cared little. The label sold dreams. One moment etches. A survivor, scarred across her back, barters at a crossroads fair. They took turns, she whispers to Brannock, voice ash. Then the chains. He slips her a coin, turns away. The spread? Relentless. From Armorica's tides to Alpine passes, the same. Resistance met with erasure. Daughters, the currency. But in lulls, breathers steal in a doe grazing unmolested in a burned field, symbol of Gaul's stubborn green. Or Titus, polishing his gladius by firelight, etching a hair Segolena's fibula, looted and lost. Irony whispers. The conquerors, too, carried ghosts. Slow now. Stretch the thread. It's the Ides of October, 52 BC, and the world hinges on a hill in Burgundy. Alesia's ramparts loom, an oppidum carved from Mont Auxois, 80,000 Gauls crammed within warriors, wives, the old and frail. Vercingetorix commands from the heights, his standard a carnyx horn that wails like souls unbound. Caesar encircles 11 miles of double walls, ditches deep as graves, 80,000 Romans holding against a relief force swelling to 260,000. Starvation gnaws first. Inside, Segolena, alive, by some grace, huddles in a cave, chains chafing wrists from Avaricum's fall. She's one of thousands, marched here as hostages to break the league. Her jaw aches still, set crooked by that fist. Night spring flashes, hands rough as bark, tearing more than cloth. But she sings to the dark, fragments of old lays. For the girl beside her, a Remy orphan named little more than Fireflower. The air thickens with the stench of unwashed bodies, the moans of the dying. Rain fails, they lap puddles, chew hides till lips bleed. Outside, the machine peaks. Caesar's lines tighten, contravallation facing out, circumvallation in towers bristling with scorpions, traps of sharpened stakes hidden in grass. Vercingetorix sends the weak forth, women first, arms outstretched, begging passage. Caesar's order, deny. They pile between lines, a living wall of despair, mothers shielding eyes from what follows. Titus stands watch, heart leaden. Generals call. A tribune shrugs. No food for foes. Days pass, the mound grows, flies buzzing thick. Inside, Segolena hears the wails, a chorus that claws the soul. She scratches tallies on stone. 20 days, 30. Vercingetorix breaks on the 40th parley under white banner. He rides down, hands bound, torque gleaming defiant. For Gaul, he says, voice carrying. Caesar accepts, eyes cold as marble. The gates creak open. Relief army scatters, hacked in the fields. But the true climax unfolds in the shadow. Captives spilled out, women sifted like grain. Segolena emerges, blinking at light, Fireflower limp in arms. Legionaries circle, prods, and leers. Virgo, one jeers, pinching. She spits, earns a cuff. Chains link anew. 1,000-strong estimates whisper 25,000 young ones, untouched in name, if not deed, destined for Rome's underbelly. Time dilates in that square. Sensory flood, dust chokes throats, iron bites skin. The lowing of Carnax's horns fades to sobs. A spear point nicks Segolena's sleeve, not death, but warning. Titus intervenes, voice bark. This batch for auction, whole. His men grumble, but obey the system's word over whim. Vercingetorix watches from a tent, chained to a post, face carved stone. The crack comes subtle. A girl's scream pierces, not from blade, but realization. Segolena meets Titus's gaze, accusation raw. He looks away, but the fracture spreads, whispers in ranks. This buys no peace. Caesar pens victory, but in the ledgers, the cost tallies Gaul's spirit, bent but unbowed. The gates close on Alesia's ghosts. Segolena's march begins, to ports where ships wait like open maws. The peak passes, but the shadow lingers, long as the Rhine. Caesar rides to Rome in triumph, 46 BC. Vercingetorix strangled in a Tullianum cell, his head a trophy for the mob. The Arverni king, once Gaul's flame, fades to legend, his people scattered, lands taxed to barren. Segolena, lost to the blocks, perhaps a senator's concubine in Capua, bearing children with Latin names, her songs silenced. Titus retires to Veii, vines twisting round his villa, but nightmares chase, hairs running eternal. Gaul quiets under Roman yoke, roads pave sacred paths, aqueducts drink from druid springs. Power shifts. Caesar crosses the Rubicon in 49. Civil war devours the republic he fed. Long term, provinces bloom villas, but tribes simmer Boudicca's fire a century on, echoing Alesia's ash. Ironic twist. Caesar's commentaries, meant to glorify, now indict their calm prose a ledger of loss, teaching generations the price of unchecked steel. Fast forward to a misty Dutch field, 2015. Nico Roymans, a wiry archaeologist from Amsterdam's Vrije Universiteit, sifts gravel from the Meuse. For decades, digs at Kessel yield shards, a Roman pilum tip, a torque fragment, bones cracked like dry branches. Carbon dates align, 55 BC. Then, the graves hundreds, women and children predominant, peri-mortem cuts screaming ambush, skulls bashed, limbs hacked, a girl's fibula, etched with a hair. This is it, Nico mutters to his team, trowel trembling. Usipetes, Tencteri, Caesar's flood. The site sprawls, massacred migrants, frozen in flight, 200,000 souls, per the bones. Published in 2015, Caesar in Gaul, it proves the machine's reach, not myth, but marrow. Nico, son of Flemish farmers, chases ghosts for truth's harvest. We name the nameless, he says in interviews, voice steady. Digs continue. Gergovia's trenches yield arrowheads. Avaricum's fields slag from kilns like Segolena's. Tangible now. A chain link, rusted but whole, unearthed near Bourges in 2020, etched with Legion X's mark. Why echo today? Power's old game, one man's boardroom gambit, displacing lives like pawns. Think migrations turned borders, daughters in chains swapped for headlines. This teaches not blame, but blueprint empires build on erasures, resistance on memory's grit. Human nature, we humanize conquerors with busts, victims with footnotes. But bones don't lie. They demand witness. Gaul's daughters didn't just perish. They seeded stories Boudica's rage. Modern rights carved from ancient wrongs. Universal. Break the machine by naming its gears. See the girl, not the ghost. And in that, power cracks. Return to that shattered wall. But now, the smoke clears. The girl with unbound hair no longer dragged, but walking, fibula glinting in dawn. Chains rust in museums, songs reborn in Breton pipes. They were meant to vanish, those 25,000 and more, erased from ledgers, from legion's boasts, but they didn't. They endure in river dredges, in commentaries' cracks, in the stubborn green that outlasts steel, and now they're here, with you. Because you chose to listen. Their eyes meet yours across millennia. Remember us. If this stirred something, comment below. What's one empire's ghost that haunts you? Hit subscribe for more tales that refuse to die. In the end, history isn't conquered, it's carried.